Let's talk. Some of you may or may not be aware of the fact that one of my very first videos ever, in fact I believe it was actually my very first video ever, was about the concept of name recognition, basically. The idea that a certain publisher would get credit or credence or be both positive and negative for a given game, even though they just published it or had their label on it, whatever, when it was actually made by these guys over here. Now, this is not exactly a big thing. Well, I'm sorry, this is not exactly a new thing. This is something that's been going on since frickin' forever, right? It's actually gotten a little bit better in more recent times with regards to the issue I originally brought it up with, which was like, to use an example, Square getting credit for a certain game, like Tomb Raider, when they didn't actually make Tomb Raider. Just to use one example. That's actually kind of a more recent example, but you get the idea, right? That kind of a thing isn't really as big of a deal as it used to be, but what I'm going to talk about today actually kind of pisses me off, which is why we're doing some kind of an out-of-order video. You may or may not know this, but actually when I record my videos, I record them very well in advance, and I set up schedules so I can have continued content coming out basically every day, going for a 5-day-a-week schedule thing, that kind of a thing. This is a video I'm recording right now, and I'm going to upload it as soon as I'm done talking, because this just pisses me off. This is not something new. I already mentioned that, but even in this application it's not something new. Let me give you an example of something that this happened with some time ago, okay? And then we'll talk about what's actually pissing me off. Once upon a time there was a company called Squaresoft. I know, I keep going with Square. It's what I know, okay? Give me a break. Squaresoft had a game series that was really, really, really popular, especially in Japan, and it was also popular overseas, which was actually quite unusual at the time. It was called Final Fantasy. Banking on that popularity, several of the people who worked in Square and certain divisions in Square wanted to go ahead and do something new. They wanted to branch out. 2 different new series they wanted to try, which would eventually be called the Mana series and the Saga series, respectively, okay? So they decided to go ahead and attach the Final Fantasy name to these first games in order to try to make them more accessible, to try and, to buy in on that brand recognition. Final Fantasy Adventure and Final Fantasy Legends, okay? There's actually a story behind this one. I'll talk about that when I do the marathon. That's not relevant right now. Point being, this is the exact same type of thing that they did. They pushed out this game. They bought in on the name recognition in order to make it sell better. The reason this is different is because even though we picked up Final Fantasy Adventure and Final Fantasy Legends hoping for a Final Fantasy and didn't get one, both of those games were still good. Because the name recognition thing was almost considered like an unfortunate thing they had to do in order to get them to sell, even though they made a decent game anyways. You see the difference in tonality. Or rather, maybe you don't, because I haven't mentioned the actual example yet, but I want you to get that tonality first, okay? I'm not saying things were better back then, by the way. Don't take this as a nostalgia thing. I'm just giving one specific example, alright? And this was in the early 90s, I do believe. So, there's that, right? Now, that's a little bit different than what I'm about to talk about because that was the same company, but that kind of thing happens a lot. Let's say that you're going to go ahead and make a new game, and you want to make this new game, and you want it to sell. You really want it to sell. So what you're going to do is you're going to buy in on the brand recognition, okay, the franchise recognition. Now, you didn't make the original games in this franchise. Those guys over there did. But you want to go ahead and push out this game, and you want it to sell. You need it to sell so you can make sure that you actually, make money and keep your job and all that fun stuff. So you go ahead and buy in on, I don't know, just to use an example, completely at random here, the Halo series, who those guys over there, Bungie, made. And you want to go ahead and push out a Halo game. Now, let me make this clear. I'm not saying Halo 4 was bad. I actually know virtually nothing about Halo 4. I know 1 through 3 reasonably well, and I just kind of stopped looking at the series. But what I'm trying to get across here is that is a completely new creative team, in every sense of the word, basically, working with existing franchise. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing. As I mentioned before in my earlier example, with Final Fantasy Legends and Final Fantasy Adventure, as long as the game being produced is good, it doesn't matter to me. Because all you're doing is buying in on brand recognition because you have to in order to get to sell, or because it'll satisfy the suits. It's an unfortunate acceptance that you have to do. And in regards to Halo 4, I'd also like to point out they were pretty open and obvious about the fact that it was a new development team. There was even I know this, because this is one of the few things I know about the game. There was like a little intro thing. We thank you for allowing us to make this game, blah, 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 blah. You know, that kind of thing, right? I'm fine with that. because it's being a little bit more open and honest and saying, look, we're not those guys, we're these guys. We're trying to do something with your franchise. Hopefully it'll work out well. I'm okay with that. What I am not okay with is putting out gutter trash, garbage that is just disgustingly poorly coded and written, and trying to say, oh, well, this is one of those previous games, you know, those other games that are incredibly amazing. Oh, this is totally another one of those. Please buy it. I am talking about Batman Arkham Origins. I'll go ahead and finally say it. I know a decent amount about Batman Arkham Origins, and it's funny because a lot of people, back before it came out, were asking me what my feelings were on it. And my answer was always basically the same answer. And my reason why, my original reason, it's funny because as time went on, it went from to because my original reason was it's different developers. The people who made Arkham Asylum and Arkham City, by the way, I highly recommend both games. They are phenomenal. They are really genuinely amazing games, and I highly recommend them. And that's kind of my point that I'm getting to, but we'll get into this. Those were phenomenally good games that sold incredibly well, and they were made by these people. The people making Origins are these people. And so, default automatically, I'm hesitant. But that was it. It could have turned out well. It could have turned out fine. But I was hesitant because it's like, well, I don't know. And then more info started to come out about the game, and more info, and more info. And every single tidbit of info just kind of, it ticked a warning flag in the back of my mind. Now, I'd like to claim precognition or seeing the warning signs, but I can't. I'm just being honest with you. In the back of my mind, I was thinking, I don't know. You know, something about this just seems off. And that's all I had. So I didn't buy Origins new, even though I was actually thinking about it at the time. I didn't actually buy it when it went on sale either, even though I was thinking about it at the time. I just kind of let it sit. I'm going to read a quote for you, okay? Well, actually, let me give you some info. Just a little bit of a tidbit dump. If you want full detailed info, there's tons of sites and tons of places that are reporting on this. I'm not going to go into all the information. I'm not trying to be your news network source here. In brief, the game is broken as crap, okay? Gameplay, storytelling, none of that matters because the game is broken as crap. It is a poorly coded piece of garbage, like I said, okay? That's the important part. It is sufficiently broken as to be game-breaking. Now, for those of you who don't, I am going to define this really quick because this is important. There is a difference between a bug that is irritating or aggravating or frustrating or funny or, you know, exploitable or whatever, and all of those bugs are basically over here in one category. That's the category of stuff that, you know, it's just weird. You know, for example, the Elder Scrolls series are very buggy games even to this day because of how, and we've gone out of this, it's not even a negative thing really, it's just they're buggy games. It's hard to debug a game that colossally huge with so many interactions. But over here is the game-breaking bug. To give you an example, I'm going to use Skyrim as an example. Let's say you're playing Skyrim, and let's say it is literally fundamentally impossible to deal with you-know-who, the guy, the dragon, his name starts with a P. It's fundamentally impossible to deal with him and advance the quest in order to continue the main quest. It is flat impossible to do so. There's some bug that makes it impossible. Or, let's say, and this is actually the example that is in Batman Arkham Origins, repeatedly reported, is let's say you're going through Skyrim and you're like, oh, that was a great session. Save, quit, go to bed, go to work, you know, and it's been a long day at work, and oh god, you get home, it's like, all right, start playing, save file's gone. Now, in Skyrim, that actually wouldn't be as much of a problem because it's got that multiple autosaves, but Batman Arkham Origins doesn't. Your save file is gone, or corrupted, which is actually can be worse, depending on how that actually interacts with your system. And of course, this is even worse because I don't know if you know this, but Batman Origins is a multiple platform game. So this is true on things where you can't just fix it. And in some cases, you... well, let's go ahead and get to this, because I'm going to read a little post here, okay? Forgive me. Warner Brothers Games Montreal, the people who made Batman Arkham Origins, has said it is working on more story DLC for Batman Arkham Origins, but that it currently has no plans to release another patch to address several issues the developer is aware of. Direct quote, "The team is currently working hard on the upcoming story DLC, and there are currently no plans for releasing another patch to address the issues that have been reported on the forums." Another direct quote, if we do move forward with creating a new patch to address the game-breaking bugs," that's not a direct quote. Sorry, If we do move forward with creating a new patch, it will try to address the progression blocking bugs for players, not the minor glitches that do not prevent one from continuing play. Which, by the way, is also an official corporate speak for admitting the fact that this game is buggy as crap, even ignoring the game-destroying glitches over here. It's got quadrillions of these. You think an Elder Scrolls game is buggy, you got nothing. The issues that are not progression blockers will unfortunately no longer be addressed. We apologize for any inconvenience this has caused for some of you and want to thank you for having been patient. I could go off on a rant for hours about what is fundamentally wrong with this kind of situation. Because I understand it, and I hate myself for that. Because I understand the economics of the situation, I understand corporate America extremely well, corporate Canada, whatever. I understand corporate extremely well. I actually went to school for that, believe it or not. I think I've mentioned that before. I get where they're coming from, I get why they're doing it, I get what they're doing. But that doesn't mean I agree with any of it. I'm going to simply say one frank thing. This is disgusting. It is disgusting that someone is willing to go so far just to increase their pocketbook. And that's my problem with it. Because let's make one thing clear. I am not against these companies making money. That's stupid. I know a few people who are far right or left or up or whatever it is wing people who say that, you know, video games and movies and books and all that stuff should be made as a passion. And while I agree with that on the surface of it, these people tend to say, well, you know, they need to not be about the money. Of course they have to be about the money. They have to pay bills, okay? They have to eat. They have families. Duh, I get that. You make a video game. I do this show to make money, okay? I'm doing this right now in a way that I can make money in order to continue existing. Okay? The problem is when you go to such a ludicrous extreme as to completely try to screw over everyone involved, especially your consumer base, and destroy customer loyalty, specifically to increase your money right now. It is short-sighted and it is stupid. And there is a difference between I have a passion for making video games and want to make a living off of that, and I want money. Let's go ahead and make video games that are popular right now. There are actually lots of other examples of this in the market right now other than this one, but this one really got to me because I quoted directly for you here. They're actually working on DLC rather than fixing a game that is acknowledged as being broken. I do apologize for raising my voice and getting slightly angrier than I usually try to be. I usually try to be calm, reasonable, enthusiastic even. But I'll be blunt. I've seen this happen before. Look up the video game crash sometime. Late 70s, early 80s. Look up the great video game crash sometime. Read the signs. See what happened to make that happen. And look around you right now. My friend Pax and I have actually been talking about this a lot lately, because he and I both think we're actually leading towards another video game crash. And I gotta be blunt. I'm starting to think it's a good thing. And I mean that. I actually have a lot of reasons why I mean that. I don't want to get into that. I shouldn't have even said that. Because a lot of good people are going to be hurt by that, and a lot of good games are going to be hurt by that. But what a game crash, a true market crash, will force is a change in fundamental philosophy, because the old methods won't work anymore. And everything that they did back then, Atari especially, everything they did to just completely flood the market, to just saturate the market, is exactly what you're seeing right now. And this garbage is just another chink. It's one additional chip on the pile, and it's going to bury the market. And I don't know what to think about that anymore. I mean, hell, we're at a point now where even Capcom is very, very close. Everything that I've read about Capcom very strongly indicates to me that they're going to pull a THQ very soon. Capcom's going to shut down or close down and sell off all its assets, and that bothers me. Capcom was one of those companies who actually helped bring video games into their golden era. And I know. People are going to be like, well, you're just nostalgia glasses. I should probably rephrase that. Their first golden era, because in my opinion, video games had two very strong golden eras, and one of them was the NES. The NES brought gaming to us, video gaming. It really did. I'm sorry, there really is no arguing this. And Capcom was one of those companies that helped make that happen. Not just the Mega Mans, not just the other stuff they did. They produced tons and tons of quality games. I don't even know what to say about this anymore. I apologize for kind of ranting. Like I said, this is a very impromptu video. I didn't practice this. I didn't rehearse this. I just pulled up the article so I could read it. Whatever. I'm out. I'll talk to you guys later.